Good morning, this is Ashley, and this morning I wanted to talk about a passage in Hebrews that's jumped out to me this week. It's from Hebrews 5:7. In the days of his flesh, Jesus offered up prayers and supplications with loud cries and tears to him who was able to save him from death, and he was heard because of his reverence. And that word reverence there, it's eulabia, that's the Greek, and it means an awe, a dread, a holy caution. The picture is how you would act if you were holding a priceless Persian vase and you were having to carry it across the room. You would be carrying it very carefully. You would be stepping very carefully. You'd probably be happy to have such an object of art in your hands, but you would be walking in a very devout fashion, literally across the room. And that word is used only one other time in the entire New Testament, also in Hebrews, in chapter 12, verse 28. Therefore, since we are receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, let us be thankful and so worship God acceptably with reverence and awe, for our God is a consuming fire. A lot of times we see around us a casualness in approaching God, even as Christians, because we're told so much, the precious verse, that we can come into the throne room boldly. Sometimes we can mistake boldly with presumption or casualness. I'm sure you've all heard the expression, the man upstairs, or something like that. This word, reverence, is the complete opposite of that. Jesus himself, when he walked the earth, in this verse it says that the Father heard him because of his reverence, and it implies, it's a twofold idea. It implies reverence to God in worship, but also a circumspect caution that guards against irreverence. And to walk circumspectly, like the Bible talks about, is to basically weigh the consequences of your actions and your words. And Jesus' petitions to the Father arose from awe of him, not presumption. There's a lot that's been written lately about the concept of awe, even in non-Christian circles, even in scientific circles. I have here this book that's been pretty popular lately. It's called Awe by Dr. Kelter. He talks about the science, it says how the new science of everyday wonder and how it can transform your life. It's like we are all born with this need of transcendence. And we need to know that there is something bigger than us out there. And when we're walking through something difficult, a grief or a loss of some sort, or a trial, ongoing or acute, like a trauma, we need to know there's something bigger than us that can take care of what feels like the entire world coming in on us. When you're going through a grief, it changes your entire world. And so you need to be able to see that there's something bigger than your entire world out there. And the most incredible thing about the Lord is that he is bigger than the entire world, because he spoke it into existence. And the Bible says he lives in a high and lofty place, but also with those whose spirits are contrite and who tremble at his word, with those who are lowly. And he draws close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. So it's like the one who is bigger than the sun, the one who spoke it all into existence and knows all the stars by their names and calls them out, cares about the things that are weighing heavily on your heart. And so it's a good thing all the time, but definitely during grief, to cultivate that sense of awe of God. You know, in this book, there was a really interesting study. I'll just read this. Or actually, I'll show you. So there's Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco, which is like a place where you can shop and eat, a place of entertainment. And then there's Tunnel View at Yosemite, which I've stood at. And it's just unspeakably beautiful. And people were given a graph to draw themselves in the landscape at Fisherman's Wharf and also at this awesome scene at Yosemite. I don't know if you can see this, but look how people drew themselves. See how at Fisherman's Wharf, people drew themselves really big in the landscape. Now that's an area where, you know, it's all about you and your entertainment and your pleasure. But at Yosemite, that landscape is so remarkable and it puts you in awe. And look how most people drew themselves and even wrote the word me really small. And that's something that's needed when we're going through such a trial. I remember, and I spoke about this recently, when I went to Yosemite, my husband and I climbed up to the base of Upper Yosemite Falls, which is a really difficult hike. It's just uphill, 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 and it's exposed, and it's really hot too. But he had been there before, and he knew about a little side path that it's not marked. It's not really a labeled trail, but it leads down to this place called Oh My God Point. And this point is just, it's a tiny ledge on the cliff, and below you're thousands of miles or thousands of feet up in the air, and before you see the several thousand feet of Yosemite Falls. You see all the drops of it, the upper, the middle, and the lower, all before you. And it was so awe-inspiring to me. I have never felt anything like that. And even to remember it brings me to tears. It was a fearsome beauty. I wanted to look at it, but I actually needed strength to even be able to look at it. And he recorded a video of me, and I was saying like, oh God, help me even look at this. And all I could really think of is that we have to stand before the judgment seat one day. Like, I couldn't even look at this scene without divine help because it was so beautiful. And all I could think of is, I've got to stand before the judgment seat. Oh, how we need Jesus. We need Jesus to help us do that. And that sense of awe, there was a definite terror, because all that separated you from death was just this tiny little bar, and it wasn't very secure. It was just it felt like it was put there almost like an afterthought. And yet the beauty was so compelling. So it was this incredible mix of attraction to the beauty and wanting to see the beauty, but terror, and my whole body trembled. And I just wept with that thought. And it was the closest I came to understanding, like Isaiah chapter 6, where Isaiah sees Jesus on the throne, high and exalted, and Isaiah is just undone. You can tell I cry thinking about it. But that concept of reverence that Jesus had as he cried and wept before the Father and offered his prayers and petitions, that's something precious to cultivate. You know, and you won't cultivate it by numbing out on Netflix or things of this earth, or, you know, you can cultivate it in many different ways, and they're unique to different people. Because what can put a person in awe, one person in awe, puts a different person in awe. But that second verse I read too, since we are receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, let us be thankful and worship God acceptably with reverence and awe. You know, for our God is a consuming fire. You know, in that passage, also just the concept that we're receiving something that cannot be shaken, because when you're going through something, your whole world has been shaken, and you can feel like the ground beneath your feet, it doesn't even make sense to you, or it doesn't even work anymore. It can feel like it has just completely been swept away. Above this, in that passage, it says, talks about the removing of what can be shaken, that is, created things, so that what cannot be shaken may remain. Therefore, since we're receiving that kingdom that cannot be shaken. So it's like everything in this earth can be shaken, and it hurts so bad when it is, or it can. But we are receiving a kingdom that can't be shaken. And so I just wonder, what can you think about doing this week or in the coming months that could cultivate that sense of awe toward God, knowing that He hears your prayers because of Christ, and that He cares about what you're going through, and how can He be made much of in your mind, so that a vision of Him eclipses even the pain that you're going through that is so consuming. I'll do my verse. This is I'm going to do one for somebody who feels sad today. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Psalm 147:3. So just think about that, to the one who feels sad. The one who spoke the moon, the stars, the sun into existence. He cares about your wounds, and He Himself will bind them up and tend to them. He cares so much. Thanks, guys.